Have you ever been in a situation where you're surrounded by people who are supposed to be your friends, but instead of making you feel welcome, they make you feel like the punchline? Like every time you open your mouth, there's some rude comment waiting, or some so-called joke at your expense. That's where our story begins. Imagine this: you're dating someone you really care about. Things are going well. You finally get the chance to meet their closest friends, the people they consider family. You're nervous, but also excited, because deep down, you want them to like you. You want to fit in. You want to show your partner that you can blend into their world. But instead of a warm welcome, you walk into a firing squad of snide remarks, laughter at your expense, and jokes that aren't funny. And just when you think your girlfriend will step in to defend you, to tell them to cut it out, she looks at you and says, "If you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay and leave." That's what happened to the guy in today's story. And trust me, it doesn't end there. Because that one sentence lit a fire under him, pushing him to reevaluate not just his girlfriend, but the entire relationship he thought was built on respect and love. So grab a seat, because this is one of those stories that makes you ask yourself, would you have stayed? Or would you have walked out the moment she chose her friends over you? Let's rewind a bit. Our storyteller, let's call him Daniel, had been dating his girlfriend, Emily, for about 7 months. Things were good, or at least, good enough to make him believe they had a future. Emily was funny, ambitious, and had this charm that made him feel lucky to be with her. But there was always one thing hanging over the relationship: her friends. Emily was part of a tight-knit group. They'd been friends since college, and she often said they were like her second family. She'd bring them up in conversation all the time, laughing about old memories, inside jokes Daniel didn't understand, and group trips they had taken long before he came into the picture. Naturally, Daniel was curious. He wanted to meet them. After all, if Emily saw these people as family, wouldn't it be important for him to get along with them? Finally, one Friday evening, the chance came. Emily invited him to dinner with a group at a trendy little restaurant in the city. Daniel remembers being nervous. You know that feeling before meeting your partner's inner circle? You're second-guessing your outfit, your handshake, even the way you'll introduce yourself. He wanted to make a good impression. The restaurant was loud, buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses. Emily's friends were already there when they arrived. Mark, the self-proclaimed jokester, Sarah, who always had a smirk like she knew something you didn't, and Jake, the laid-back one who mostly went with the flow. At first, things seemed okay. There were polite hellos, a few quick introductions, and everyone ordered drinks. But it didn't take long for the mood to shift. The first joke came from Mark. "So Daniel," he said, leaning back in his chair with a grin, "Emily told us you're in IT. Does that mean you're the guy we call when our Wi-Fi's down?" Everyone laughed, everyone except Daniel. He smiled politely, but it already stung. Not because the joke was devastatingly cruel, but because of the tone. It wasn't playful curiosity. It was condescending, dismissive. Like his career was a punchline. Emily laughed too. That hurt the most. Daniel brushed it off. He thought, okay, maybe it's just their humor. Maybe they're testing me, seeing if I can roll with the punches. But then came Sarah. "So, how do you and Emily even work anyway? You seem so serious. She's always out, always laughing. Do you ever, have fun?" Another round of laughter. Emily giggled again, covering her face like it was harmless teasing. Daniel forced a smile, but inside, something cracked. He wanted to defend himself, but what could he say without looking uptight? Throughout the night, the digs kept coming. Mark mocked the way he pronounced a word. Sarah rolled her eyes at his taste in movies. Jake, though quieter, chuckled along with the group. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. By the time dinner was halfway through, Daniel wasn't laughing. He was uncomfortable, embarrassed, and worst of all, starting to resent Emily for not stepping in. And then the moment that would define everything, when Mark made another jab, something about Daniel being the dad of the group already because he didn't order another round of shots. Daniel finally sighed and said, quietly but firmly, "It kind of feels like you guys are laughing at me, not with me." The table went silent. For a split second, he thought maybe, just maybe, Emily would back him up. Instead, she smirked and said, in front of everyone, "If you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay and leave." The group burst out laughing. Daniel sat there, stunned. His girlfriend, the person he trusted, had just publicly humiliated him, siding with her friends instead of even trying to understand how he felt. And that's when he realized, this night wasn't about getting to know her friends. It was about surviving them. What would you have done if your partner said that to you in front of their friends? Would you laugh it off, confront them right there, or get up and walk away? Daniel didn't say much for the rest of that dinner, sat there, quietly finishing his meal, pushing food around his plate while the group carried on like nothing had happened. Inside, he felt two things at once, humiliation and disbelief. How could Emily, the woman he thought cared about him, look him dead in the eye, hear him set a boundary, and instead of supporting him, throw him under the bus with a one-liner? And not just any one-liner, but one designed to get a laugh from people who already saw him as a joke. When the bill came, the irony wasn't lost on him. The friends made comments again, like, "Careful, Daniel might cry if he has to split this evenly." "Don't worry, Emily, we know you're the one paying in this relationship." And Emily? She just rolled her eyes at him, as if he was the one ruining the night by not being fun. Daniel paid his share, left a polite tip, and walked out with Emily. The moment they were alone, his silence shattered. "Emily," he said, his voice tight, "what was that back there? Why would you say something like that to me?" Emily shrugged, unfazed. "What are you talking about?" Daniel stopped in his tracks. "You literally told me to pay and leave, because I asked your friends to stop making fun of me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you're being so sensitive." "They were joking, Daniel. That's just how they are." "No," Daniel shot back, "that's how you let them be. There's a difference." Emily crossed her arms, clearly annoyed. "So what, you want me to baby you every time my friends make a joke? Grow a thicker skin. They tease everyone." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Teasing is one thing. Constantly mocking me, making digs about my job, my personality, my relationship with you. That's not teasing, that's disrespect." Emily's expression hardened. "If you can't handle my friends, maybe you can't handle me. They're part of my life. If you want to be with me, you have to accept them." That sentence hit Daniel like a punch. Not because it was harsh, but because of what it implied. In Emily's world, her friends came first. Not her boyfriend. Not the man she claimed to care about. That night, Daniel went home with a pit in his stomach. The days after the dinner were tense. Daniel pulled back emotionally. He still texted Emily, but his replies were shorter. When she called, his tone lacked warmth. Emily noticed, of course, but instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "You're still mad about that," she said over the phone 2 days later. "Seriously, Daniel, it wasn't a big deal." "It was a big deal to me," he replied. "I asked you to back me up, and instead you embarrassed me." Emily sighed dramatically. "I can't believe you're dragging this out. If you can't take a joke, maybe you're not the right person for me." That line echoed in Daniel's head for hours. Maybe he wasn't the right person for her. Or maybe she wasn't the right person for him. The breaking point came the following weekend. Emily invited Daniel out again, this time to a casual house party at Sarah's apartment. Daniel hesitated. Every part of him wanted to say no, but a small voice whispered, "Give her another chance. Maybe it won't be as bad this time," so he went. The apartment was crowded, music thumping, drinks flowing. Emily's friends were in their usual spots, Mark with a beer in hand, Sarah on the couch like she owned the place, Jake laughing at some story. The moment Daniel walked in, the joke started. "Look who finally showed up," Mark said loudly. "We thought Emily left you at home with your spreadsheets." Laughter. Then Sarah chimed in, "Emily, you sure you don't want to trade up tonight? Plenty of guys here who'd love to buy you a drink." More laughter. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He glanced at Emily, silently pleading with her to say something. She didn't. She just smiled awkwardly, like she was embarrassed by him. Not for him. He lasted 20 minutes. 20 minutes of being the butt of every joke, 20 minutes of Emily pretending nothing was wrong. Finally, when Mark made yet another crack, this time about Daniel being lucky Emily hasn't dumped him yet, Daniel snapped. "Enough," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. "You guys think you're funny, but you're not. You're just rude. And honestly, I'm done being your punching bag." The silence hung heavy. People shifted uncomfortably. Sarah raised an eyebrow, smirking like she just won something. And then, right on cue, Emily rolled her eyes. "Daniel, stop making a scene." He turned to her, stunned. "A scene? Emily, They've been tearing me down since I walked in the door. And you're fine with it. Her lips pressed into a thin line. If you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't come around. That was it. The line in the sand. Daniel set his drink down, turned, and walked out on his drive home. His mind raced. What am I doing? Why am I staying with someone who lets me be humiliated? Why am I fighting for respect in a relationship that should have it built in from the start? By the time he got home, the anger had settled into something worse. Clarity realized that Emily wasn't just tolerating her friend's behavior, she was enabling it. She laughed along, minimized his feelings, and even contributed to the disrespect. And if this was how she treated him now, in the early stages of the relationship, what would it look like years down the line? Would he always be the outsider? The butt of every joke, the guy she never defended? That night, Daniel made a decision. He wasn't going to let this slide again. The next day, Emily texted him like nothing was wrong. Had fun last night. Sorry if you were moody again. Daniel stared at the message, disbelief flooding him. Moody? That's how she saw it? Not hurt, not humiliated, not disrespected, just moody. He typed back, "We need to talk." When they met that evening, Emily seemed annoyed from the start. "What now?" she asked, arms crossed. Daniel took a deep breath. "Emily, I can't keep doing this. Your friends don't respect me. They've made that clear. And you don't stand up for me, you laugh along with them. I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly torn down." Emily scoffed. "So you're going to throw everything away because of a few jokes?" Daniel met her eyes. "No. I'm walking away because of how you respond to those jokes. Because you chose them over me." For once, Emily didn't have a snarky comeback. She just sat there silent, as Daniel stood up and walked out. When Daniel walked out of that last conversation with Emily, he felt strangely calm. Not triumphant, not gloating, just calm. Like a storm had passed, and now he could finally see things clearly. For weeks, he'd been questioning himself. Am I overreacting? Am I too sensitive? Maybe I just don't understand their humor. But the truth was simple, it wasn't about the jokes. It was about respect. And respect was non-negotiable. For the first time since dating Emily, Daniel stopped chasing. He didn't text her good morning. He didn't check in during his lunch break. He didn't ask about her plans. And the silence was deafening. For Emily, BY day 2, she texted him, "Hey, haven't heard from you. Everything okay?" Daniel stared at the screen. Normally, he'd reply right away, eager to smooth things over. This time, he let it sit. He replied hours later, simply, "I'm fine. Just busy to no emojis. No heart. No softness." Emily noticed. That weekend she called him, her tone unusually sweet. "Do you want to come over? We can order food and watch a movie." Daniel hesitated. Part of him missed her, missed the version of her he thought she was. But another part knew this was a test. When he arrived, Emily greeted him with a hug. For a moment, it almost felt normal again. They ordered takeout, put on a comedy, and laughed together. But then halfway through the movie she said it. "You know, my friends asked about you." Daniel's stomach tightened. What did they say? She smirked. "They wanted to know if you're still mad at them. I told them you just need to lighten up." The calm Daniel had built all week wavered, but he held his composure. "Emily," he said evenly, "that's not what's happening. And if you still don't get that, then maybe we really are done." Her smirk faded. For the first time, she looked unsure. The power shift had begun. Emily was used to Daniel being the quiet, accommodating one. The guy who tolerated her friends, who laughed along even when it stung. Now, she was facing someone who wasn't afraid to walk away. The next week, she invited him to another group outing. "It'll be fun," she said, almost pleading. "Everyone's going to be there. Just come, please." Daniel shook his head. "No. I'm not putting myself in that situation again." Her eyes narrowed. "So you're just cutting them off?" "I'm setting boundaries," Daniel replied. "If they can't treat me with respect, I won't be around them. And if you can't respect that, then we're done." Emily didn't like ultimatums. She tried to flip it back on him. "So you're going to make me choose between you and my friends?" Daniel met her gaze. "No. I'm making a choice for myself. You get to decide what you want." Over the next few days, the cracks deepened. Emily called less. When she did, she was colder. And when they finally met again in person, her frustration spilled over. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "Nobody else has a problem with them. Why do you?" Daniel's answer was steady. "Because nobody else is dating you. It's not their relationship, it's ours. And I deserve to be respected in it." That shut her up. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Daniel started talking about it with his own friends. He'd always been private about his relationship, but now he needed outside perspective. One friend, Alex, put it bluntly, "Man, they sound toxic. And if she won't defend you now, she never will. You're dodging a bullet." Another friend, Mia, added, "You teach people how to treat you. If Emily thinks it's okay to laugh at you with her friends, she'll keep doing it. Unless you stop it, or walk away." Their words hit hard. For the first time, Daniel realized he wasn't crazy. He wasn't too sensitive. He was just tired of being disrespected. Armed with this clarity, Daniel began pulling back even more. He stopped prioritizing Emily. He stopped rearranging his schedule to fit hers. And Emily noticed. One evening, she showed up at his apartment unannounced. "We need to talk," she said, standing in the doorway. Daniel let her in, waiting. She sat down, fidgeting with her hands. "I don't like how distant you've been." Daniel stayed quiet. She continued, "I know my friends can be harsh sometimes, but that's just their humor. I don't think they mean it." Daniel leaned forward. "Emily, it doesn't matter if they mean it or not. What matters is that I told you it bothers me, and you ignored me. Worse, you laughed along. That's not what a partner does." Her eyes filled with frustration. "So what, you want me to pick you over them?" Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "I want you to respect me. If that feels like a choice to you, then maybe that tells us everything we need to know." For the first time since this all started, Emily didn't have a comeback. She just sat there, staring at him, realizing the control she once had was slipping. And Daniel? For the first time, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Power. Not power over Emily, but power over himself. He realized he didn't need her approval, or her friends' acceptance, to feel worthy. All he needed was self-respect. If you were in Daniel's shoes, would you cut the friends off quietly and just focus on the relationship, or would you walk away from both her and the group entirely? Which route feels stronger to you? Emily couldn't handle the silence. After Daniel pulled back, after he stopped chasing, she realized something terrifying. He was serious. He wasn't bluffing, he wasn't sulking, he was ready to walk away. And Emily wasn't used to that. She was used to having the upper hand, with her friends as backup, laughing along and reminding Daniel that he was the outsider, so she did the one thing she thought might fix it. She invited him, again, to another group dinner. "It'll be different this time," she promised over text. "I talked to them. They'll behave." Daniel hesitated. His gut screamed don't go, but a part of him wanted closure. He wanted to see if Emily could truly change, or if this would be the final nail in the coffin, so he agreed. The dinner was at a nicer restaurant this time, not too fancy, but not the casual bar they usually went to. Emily dressed up, clearly trying to impress, and when Daniel arrived, she greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, like she was trying to play the part of the perfect girlfriend. Her friends were already there, drinks in hand, laughter bubbling. First, it seemed. Okay. The jokes were toned down. The comments were lighter. Daniel almost thought maybe Emily had actually talked to them. But then, halfway through the meal, Mark couldn't help himself. "So Daniel," he said with a grin, "are you paying for all of us tonight, or should we start a GoFundMe?" The table chuckled. Not as loud as before, but enough. Daniel felt the old heat rise in his chest. He glanced at Emily. This was her chance. This was the moment she could step in and prove she had his back. Emily laughed. Not a loud belly laugh, but a smirk, a stifled giggle. Just enough to let everyone know she was still on their side. That was it. That was the breaking point. Daniel set his fork down slowly, wiped his mouth with his napkin, and looked around the table. His voice was calm, steady, but it carried enough weight to silence the room. "You know," he said, "I've been sitting here for months, wondering if I'm too sensitive. Wondering if maybe I just don't get your humor. But I've realized something. It's not about the jokes. It's about respect. And none of you, not a single one of you, respects me." The table froze. Mark's smirk faltered. Sarah crossed her arms, eyebrows raised, like she was waiting for the drama. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Daniel turned to Emily. "And you? The person I thought cared about me. Every time they've torn me down, I looked at you, waiting for you to say something. Anything. But you never did. You laughed. You joined in. You humiliated me." Emily's face flushed red. "Daniel, don't do this." "No," Daniel interrupted, his voice sharp. "I've stayed quiet long enough. You think this is just about me not having a sense of humor? No. This is about me realizing I deserve better than being your punchline." The table was silent now. Even the background chatter of the restaurant seemed to fade. Daniel stood up, pulled out his wallet, and placed enough cash to cover his meal on the table. Then he looked directly at Emily. "You told me once, if you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay and leave. So that's exactly what I'm doing." And with that, he turned and walked out. The reaction at the table was immediate. Mark muttered, "Damn." Sarah whispered, "Yikes." Jake shook his head, clearly uncomfortable. And Emily? She sat there, humiliated. For the first time, she wasn't the one laughing. She was the one left behind. Outside, Daniel felt a rush of adrenaline. His heart pounded, his hands shook, but for the first time in months, he felt free, no more second-guessing himself. No more wondering if he was too sensitive. No more trying to win over people who never wanted to respect him in the first place. He walked into that restaurant feeling like the outsider. He walked out knowing he was finally in control of his own story. Later that night, Emily blew up his phone. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You didn't have to be so dramatic. If you loved me, you'd accept my friends the way they are." Daniel read the messages, one after another, and then did something he'd never done before. He didn't reply, he blocked her number. And just like that, the cycle was broken. The fallout spread fast. Sarah posted something vague on Instagram. "Some people just can't handle the heat. Guess they should stay out of the kitchen," clearly aimed at him. Mark joked in the group chat, which Daniel wasn't in, but screenshots made their way back to him through mutual friends, calling him boring and weak. But Daniel didn't care. Because while they were busy mocking him, he was busy moving on to message lingers long after the video ends. The days after that dinner were strange for Daniel. For the first time in a long time, there was silence. No texts from Emily, not after he blocked her. No group invites. No more dinners that ended in humiliation. Tea first. The silence felt heavy. Relationships, even toxic ones, leave behind a kind of echo. He'd spent so much time trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, that he almost didn't know what to do with himself now that it was over. But slowly, that silence turned into peace. He started spending more time with people who actually valued him. His co-worker James, who always invited him to trivia night. His sister, who had told him a dozen times that Emily wasn't good for him, but supported him anyway. Even his gym buddy Marcus, who wasn't much of a talker, but showed up when Daniel needed distraction. And with every laugh that wasn't at his expense, Daniel began to heal. Emily, on the other hand, spiraled. She posted cryptic Instagram stories, pictures of wine glasses with captions like "fake people always reveal themselves eventually." She tweeted about men who can't handle confident women. And in private, she vented to her friends about how Daniel overreacted and made her look bad. But the thing was, cracks were showing in her friend group too. Jake, the quieter one, eventually told her, "You know, maybe Daniel had a point. We were kind of rough on him." Sarah rolled her eyes. He just couldn't hang. Mark laughed it off. "Whatever. He'll be forgotten in a week." But Emily couldn't forget. Because the truth was, Daniel had left her in a way no one ever had before, with dignity, with the final word. And deep down, she knew she'd lost him for good. For Daniel, the biggest change wasn't just losing Emily. It was gaining perspective. He realized he'd been bending himself into shapes just to be accepted. He'd let himself be the butt of the joke because he thought that was the price of love. But love wasn't supposed to feel like that. Love wasn't supposed to humiliate you in public. Love wasn't supposed to make you feel small so someone else could look bigger. Love wasn't supposed to be conditional on your ability to endure cruelty disguised as jokes. Love was supposed to be partnership, respect, kindness. And once he understood that, he knew he'd never settle again. Months later, Daniel was at another dinner, but this time with people who lifted him up. Friends who celebrated his wins. People who didn't need to tear him down to feel better about themselves. And when someone cracked a joke, it was actually funny. And for once, Daniel laughed along without feeling like the joke was aimed at him. He realized then, the real punchline was that he had wasted so much time trying to be accepted by the wrong people, when the right people had been there all along. Emily. Well, the last Daniel heard, she was still with her same group of friends. Still posting cryptic stories. Still laughing the loudest at other people's expense. But now, it wasn't his problem anymore. And for anyone watching, Daniel had one final reflection. If you ever find yourself surrounded by people who make you feel smaller just so they can laugh, walk away. You don't owe anyone your dignity. The right people won't need to tear you down to feel close to you. Trust me, life is way too short to be someone's punchline. So, what do you think? Did Daniel make the right call by walking out and leaving Emily behind? Or do you think he should have tried harder to make it work? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, I'll be reading. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, where your partner let their friends disrespect you, I want to hear your story too. Because trust me, you're not alone. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next drama. Until next time, remember, respect in a relationship isn't optional, it's the bare minimum.